Jessica Gallagher was just 27 years old, living in Austin, Texas, juggling 2 jobs and chasing a dream. A recent graduate from Texas State University, she spent her days working at a local grocery store and filling in as a temporary teacher, all while saving up to finish her master's degree. She was exhausted, sure, but never bitter. Friends say she never lost her optimism. She believed that even in chaos, there was meaning. "Someday everything will make sense," she once wrote. "Laugh at the chaos, smile through the tears." But behind that bright smile, Jessica was fighting hard to build a future, to pay off student loans, to secure a permanent teaching position at a local elementary school. She had big plans, a kind heart, and a contagious laugh. But one night, in the middle of her regular routine, everything changed. Jessica didn't show up for her shift. That wasn't like her. She was reliable, almost to a fault. Her friends called, no answer. Hours passed, then a full day. Her apartment was locked from the outside. Her car was still in the lot, but Jessica was gone. It wasn't long before the worst possible fear started creeping in. Police began investigating, and what they uncovered next shocked not only Jessica's family and friends, but the entire city of Austin. This wasn't just a disappearance. This was something darker, something far more violent. Her body would be found days later, hidden where no one was meant to find it, and the person responsible, closer than anyone expected. This wasn't random. It wasn't a mistake.
About being anonymous, that's just inviting bullies. It's getting out of hand now. Even after Hannah died, I was on the internet and I was seeing things that was getting said, and it's thousands and thousands of children are getting bullied every day on the site. It's not just the 5 people that killed herself. Every child's getting bullied. So I don't know what they're going to do.
Would you like to see it shut down?
I would love to see it, yeah, because I don't want to go and switch the TV on again and see another kid's killed herself because they've been bullied on Ask FM.
The story reminds us just how fragile life can be, and how the most dangerous monsters often wear familiar faces. What happened to Jessica Gallagher is more than just a case. It's a warning, a tragedy, and a call for justice that still echoes today. It was Labor Day, September 7th, 2009. The last time anyone would see Jessica Gallagher alive. That day, she spent time with her cousin Melanie, her best friend, and a few others, laughing by the pool, sharing BBQ under the hot Texas sun. They eventually moved the gathering to a diner and then a bar, just to relax before the work week. Jessica was careful. She had to be. With work in the morning and student debt on her back, she didn't drink much and was the designated driver. Around 1:30 a.m., she dropped Melanie off. Melanie offered her to stay the night, but Jessica smiled and said no. She needed to be up early, check on her dogs, and grab pet food. That was the last time Melanie saw her alive. The next morning, Jessica didn't show up to work. That wasn't just strange. It was terrifying. Jessica never missed a shift. Melanie's heart sank as she called around.
Jessica Gallagher remembered today as talented, warm and a very loving person.
Yes, that's right, Colette. She was also remembered as one of her father's 3 jewels. There was 3 girls in that family. Jessica, one of the jewels in her father's and mother's eyes. Father John Joe Duffy saying today that we have no control over our pathway in life. He said the parish here in Creeslough is feeling the Gallagher family's pain. He said our hearts are heavy, but our spirit is strong. Now, Jessica's funeral was the first funeral to take place of the 10 victims that died last Friday. Many more will take place over over the coming days. At 2 o'clock today, the funeral mass of Martin McGill will take place, also in St Michael's Church here in Creeslough. Father John Joe Duffy, the parish priest, will officiate over many of those funeral masses. And speaking before Jessica's mass this morning, he told us that this morning he came to the scene here behind me. He came to look for inspiration ahead of today.
A member of the Gardaí brought me to where the flowers were, and I thank them for allowing me to do that. And we prayed together for all who died, for the families, and we prayed also for those who remain in hospital. And the family just want to send a very clear message this morning of thanks to everyone, their heartfelt gratitude in their own time of grief. They are thinking of thanking others and want to thank others and want that to go out very loud and clear.
Now, while the funerals are taking place in St Michael's Church at the opposite end of the village, here behind me at the scene, the Garda investigation is continuing. The Garda technical team remain on the scene here. They have been here since Saturday evening, and international experts have also been flown in. Those experts will examine the scene here. They'll also examine the debris and the rubble that was taken away on Friday evening and Saturday in the immediate aftermath of the explosion. They're looking for any evidence that may help in the investigation to pinpoint exactly where the explosion occurred. Gardaí are treating this explosion as a tragic accident, but say their investigations will continue to try and establish exactly what caused it.
She went straight to the dog food aisle and bought what she came for. Nothing out of the ordinary, until she left. Behind her in the footage, a tall man in a brown shirt and baseball cap appeared. He had entered Walmart just minutes before Jessica, and he was watching her. He parked far away from her car, used the store's bathroom, and lingered. Then he followed her out, staying roughly 20 seconds behind her. Jessica's car was parked behind a large tree in a blind spot for most cameras. The only working camera that could see anything was of poor quality. From what investigators could make out, the man approached her vehicle and then vanished from view. 2 minutes later, Jessica's car pulled away, but she wasn't alone. Her killer was likely inside. Hours later, her car appeared at Little Caesars and never
Police
moved again.
in the Republic of Ireland have named the 10 people who were killed by an explosion at a petrol station in a village in County Donegal. The victims include a 39-year-old woman and her 13-year-old son, and a 50-year-old man and his 5-year-old daughter. Police also confirmed that a man in his 20s remains in hospital in a critical condition. 7 other people who were injured in the explosion are still being treated in hospital, and they remain in a stable condition. Our Ireland correspondent Chris Page reports.
The youngest victim of the explosion was Shauna Flanagan Garway, who was 5. She was killed along with her dad, Robert. A mum and her son also died together, Catherine O'Donnell and 13-year-old James Monaghan. The other teenager who lost her life was Leona Harper. She was 14, a sports fan and a keen rugby player. There were 5 more victims: Jessica Gallagher, James O'Flaherty, Martin McGill, Martina Martin and Hugh Kelly. Creeslough has much mourning ahead. The emergency operation is over, but the grieving has just begun.
It will take many months and years for a community to come to terms with this, but right ahead of us are the sad and difficult days of funerals and saying goodbye to loved ones.
The raw reality of what's happened is taking hold in this otherwise idyllic part of Ireland. County Donegal is usually thought of as being an Irish haven, a place of rest and retreat. People in these closest of communities feel that one of the most valuable things they can do is simply to come together, to offer solidarity and sympathy to those who've been bereaved so suddenly.
Keep the families in your mind and your prayers.
In the village of Downings, hundreds came out for a vigil this evening. Among them were Neil and Sean Martin, who whose mother Martina died in the shop where she worked. The sense of disbelief is still deepening.
Everybody's just going about with their heads down. Everybody feels it and everybody's mind is on it. Thinking about the families all the time, and just people are devastated.
There's never been such an unexpected tragedy here. There's been speculation a gas leak caused the explosion, but the police say the investigation will take time. Immense suffering has been inflicted on Creasla in only a split second. 10 candles on the church altar are the focus of unspeakable sorrow for each person gone. Chris Page, BBC News in Donegal.
Whether physical, emotional or both, had left her in a severely altered state, and Creason Hall was the last person believed to have been alone with her. When police visited him 5 days after Jessica's body was found, Creason didn't act surprised. His story was ready, almost too ready. He claimed they had met online through a hookup site and agreed to meet that night at Walmart. He said they drove together to a park and had consensual sex. Then she dropped him back off. Jessica even gave him her bank card and PIN, he said, to help him pay a gas bill. He insisted he was shocked to learn she'd been found dead. But none of that held up. There was no record, digital or otherwise, that Jessica had ever been on the hookup site. Her friends said she was extremely cautious and would never meet a stranger that late without telling someone. Police searched both of their devices. No calls, no texts, no chat logs, nothing. Crescen's claim completely unravelled, and if that wasn't enough, surveillance video contradicted nearly everything he said. There was no interaction between them inside or outside the store. Jessica never acknowledged him. She wasn't there to meet him. She was there for dog food. Then came the most damning piece. When confronted with the camera footage and asked again about his version of events, Crescent fell silent. He asked for a lawyer. That was when the police knew. They were dealing with a man hiding something dark. Still, without conclusive evidence of what had happened inside the car, they couldn't charge him with murder. But they could, and did, charge him with perjury. In May 2010, Creason Hall pled guilty and was sentenced to 10 years in prison for lying to police. Jessica's murder case, however, remains officially open. What happened during those lost hours between 2:30 and 5:30 a.m. is still unclear. Police believe Creason forced himself into her car, possibly threatened her, and drove her to a secluded spot where she was brutally raped and strangled. They believe he staged her body and returned to his truck, hoping no one would make the connection. But his story collapsed under the weight of evidence, and the trail led straight to him. For Jessica's family and friends, closure is still out of reach. Her killer may be behind bars, but not for the crime he should be. The marks on her neck, the panic in her last movements, the cruelty she endured in her final hours. It all remains etched into the minds of those who loved her. Jessica Gallagher was not just a name on a case file. She was a daughter, a friend, a hard-working dreamer with a bright future. And someone, someday, must answer for what happened that night. For months, the case remained cloudy. But new insight came from an expert at the Indiana University School of Medicine. A chilling analysis of what might have happened to Jessica Gallagher in her final hours. According to forensic research, death from strangulation doesn't always occur instantly. In many cases, the brain damage caused by oxygen deprivation leads to delayed symptoms, confusion, erratic behavior, and eventually, death from internal collapse. The expert, Dr. Bill Smock, confirmed that Jessica's bizarre behavior, crawling around her car, talking to herself, and the presence of feces matched what's known as slow death strangulation. Jessica had likely been strangled twice by Chryson Hall. The first time, he may have thought she was dead, but she wasn't. She was unconscious. Brain cells had already begun to die. Her motor functions and memory were collapsing, but her heart kept beating. Then he strangled her again. By the time she was left in that car, alone under the punishing Texas sun, her body was spiraling, her brain was shutting down, and no one was there to help. By the time she was found, it was too late. It wasn't until May 2013 that Chryson was finally charged with capital murder. The evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance footage, his changing story, the stolen card, the timeline. Yet, in court, his defense clung to one thing: no DNA. There were no fingerprints, no skin cells under Jessica's nails. But experts explained that in the kind of extreme heat Jessica's body had endured, DNA often disintegrates. Her car, parked in 90 degrees plus heat, had been a furnace. The lack of DNA didn't prove innocence. It was simply a tragic consequence of the conditions she was left in. Still, Chryson's lies piled up. He told an ex-girlfriend that his truck broke down. When it was actually seized by investigators, he said his phone was lost in a fire. When it was actually confiscated, his deception was constant. But despite it all, the first trial ended in a mistrial. The prosecutor, Jana Duty, was accused of hiding evidence and later jailed for violating a gag order. The family was devastated. They had come so close to justice and then watched it slip away. Years passed, but in 2018, nearly a decade after Jessica's death, the case went back to court. This time, the prosecution came prepared. They showed surveillance video, police interviews, forensic evidence, and expert testimony. The lead investigator pointed out inconsistencies in Christen's story, like the position of the driver's seat. Jessica, barely 5 feet 4 inches, would have needed the seat forward, but it had been pushed back all the way, matching Christen's height. His fingerprints weren't found, but his lies were everywhere. The jury listened, watched, reviewed the timeline, then, finally, delivered their verdict: guilty. Chryson Hall was convicted of capital murder in the rape and killing of Jessica Gallagher. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He tried appealing in 2020. It failed. He will never walk free again. But for Jessica's family, closure remains elusive. Her cousin John said, "He gets to live," but she doesn't. He took away my chance to walk her down the aisle. She would have been an amazing mother. Her friend Melanie, the last person to hug her goodbye, said the memories of that day are forever stained. "No day feels whole anymore," she said. "Something will always be missing." Jessica Gallagher was kind, hard-working, and full of dreams. She wasn't reckless. She didn't live dangerously. All she wanted was to go home, feed her dogs, and prepare for work. She had her entire life ahead of her. But a man she didn't know, a man she never planned to meet, stole everything from her. And while justice was eventually served, the wound left behind is one her loved ones will carry forever.